While you get ready to maybe take us through the 2016 Oliver's blend, I think that's what's in your glass.
Yeah.
We decided to open up some 2014 here at Skipstone. I'm going to pour myself a touch more since I'm almost out, but hopefully everyone's enjoying some wine right now along with us. We don't want to be the only ones drinking.
People ask me always, what are you looking for when you test wine? And I think everybody's a little bit different there. But again, what I was saying is like, when we create a blend and a wine and a product, we want to make sure basically the wine feel like Cabernet Sauvignon, because it is a Cabernet Sauvignon. So it needs to have a little bit more shoulder, if you wish, when you start to swallow the wine. It needs to have this kind of, what I always remember, Heidi Barrett, another winemaker, who told me there is almost this like 1, 2, 3 tempo. The first feel basically of a human being, the first contact that you have with someone. And then after you have the mid palate, what after the first contact, what is this conversation meaning to you? What is that exciting your brain? Do you want to learn more? And then this kind of the end, the finish is really important for me because it's what people are going to remember. And usually on a great wine, this finish needs to last as long as possible. So means even after swallowing the wine, we always talk about how many seconds you still get the perfume or the sense of the wine after swallowing it. Is it like 2 seconds? Is it like 10? Is it like 20? Is it like 30? So usually the great wines really last quite a bit, 20 seconds, sometimes more, you keep the wine with you in a way. And that's really the important part. But the 16, without even testing it first, we have to think about the vintage. I mean, this is like one of a kind, I have to say it. I mean, my first year was 91 in Napa, so I've done quite a bit. And 16 is still, I can change my mind over time, but right now I can say it's really my top 3 vintages. I always describe 16 to be very quick and straightforward, finesse and power. It's very difficult to combine those two. Usually when you have a lot of power, a lot of, shoulder and concentration and tannic structure, the wine tend to be a little rustic and austere, where in 16 you have a beautiful finesse there. So to know what a great vintage is, it's like those wines, I can open them now, they drink great. I'm going to open them in 10, 15, 20 years. I know they're going to drink great. They are cold, they are warm. I have a big glass, I have a small glass. All kind of conditions the wine always performing, which is very rare. And that's what makes this vintage so great for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love 2016. I think that might be my favorite vintage of the last decade too. Just such perfect conditions year round. Like when you're in it, like in some vintages, I feel like, again, you said you've been out here for 20 or almost 30 years now. I feel like 2016 had to be one of those vintages when, like, even while you're experiencing it, you're just sitting here like, this is crazy how perfect everything is aligning right now. So I think it shows through in the wines for sure. We pulled up a 2014. This is a wine I hadn't tasted in probably 6 months, a year. Very similar to the 2016. It's almost 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. For me, I always love what happens with like the Skipstone wines around that like 6-ish year mark. They start to kind of move from, like with 2016, you said it's this really, nice finesse, big, powerful wine, but it has this youthfulness to it. Whereas right at that kind of 6-ish year mark, I find that the Skipstone wines start to evolve a lot, like very quickly, into be showing these beautiful, like secondary characteristics. You're kind of unlocking a lot of, for me, like the underlying character at Skipstone. And I'll ask you what you think about it with the Las Rocas hillside blocks on this. But that one like kind of defining characteristic for me is that it has that power and richness that you expect in California, especially hillside Cabernet. But there's this really beautiful kind of like crushed rock and earthiness like that comes through in the wine that really starts to show itself right now. And that's popping out in the glass for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of you too. But what is it that stands out about the Skipstone Vineyard for you in terms of what it brings to the wine?
You know, for me, there's the first thing, there's a soul. I mean, the wine has to have a soul, a life to it. So the wines evolve with time and has a beautiful personality. I think what struck me with Skipstone is really, in some regards, you know, you feel like you're on a hillside. You feel like you're on a western exposure with the late sun. So there's still basically the late sun gives you this kind of beautiful texture. You still have those old vines really give you a sense of balance and symmetry. I think the wines have the elegance, little bit of the owners. And you know, their sophistication. I always kind of associate the wine also that way. So I feel like when people want to test Skipstone in this regard, they want to test something different from Alexander Valley. They want to test something unique. They want to test something like in just producing 500, 600, 700 cases out of those wines. So there's this kind of limitation. So this is a whole package experience. And they know that there is consistency over the years because, as you know, we have the tools and the dedication from the ownership. That's also part of, you know, performance. So I think that's overall that's what people should look for.
Give us your take on Cab Franc. How do you approach that, and what is it that you expect to see?
When I started at the beginning, we have a very small block of Cab Franc. The idea of this Cab Franc was really trying to kind of help us into the olive blend. Then we planted more Cab Franc because we felt like, you know, Cab Franc was performing so well, first of all, you know, in this site where we were not sure at the beginning. So the growth of Cab Franc started there. And we realized very quickly that Cab Franc was really having a unique character that we really wanted to capture in a way from this vineyard. And we wanted the consumer to share a little bit of emotion that we have by drinking those wines. If you make wine from Cab Franc, those wines have a great character and they can age. That's kind of the key. So, and they're very different than Cabernet Sauvignon as well. We felt like, you know, Cab Franc was bringing a very different style of wine compared to the Cabernet Sauvignon. I feel like, you know, Cab Franc, it's almost, I almost describe the Cab Franc by, you know, meeting this, it always remind me, I don't know why, when I was working in Italy, meeting this old Italian guy who doesn't want to talk to you. And you really need to work hard to be able to have a little bit of a conversation.
Yeah.
So Cab Franc doesn't want to give it, he doesn't want to understand it, except if you really work hard in a vineyard. And then you're really starting to develop this really intense relationship. So that's really how it started with Cab Franc. But it's very perfumey. There's a lot of perfume. The Cab Franc always bring, you know, you can see in the wine, the 16 at least have a lot of graphite, very darker fruit profile. So it's extremely perfuming, varietal. It's a little less phenolic or tannic structure, but the tannic structure is very intense. So the wines have a lot of energy for me. They have a lot of life. That's why we love the Cab Franc in general.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's so much that we have to, in most of the cases, turn him down a little bit by adding, depending on the case, here we're using Merlot basically to try to bring things down to reality and makes the wine a little bit more approachable because, again, those wines have so much life and tightness sometimes and intensity that they will need a long time to age. So that's why we're doing it in Bordeaux. We're doing it also in California to create this kind of a little bit more harmonious, approachable kind of wines.
How do you approach the actual blending of this wine in particular, being that it is the one that probably there's leeway on any wines, but this one in particular, just can be so many different things. So what is the kind of soul of this wine, and how do you start that process as the winemaker in the blending of this one?
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. So I would say it's you don't look at the same balance basically. That when you look at Cabernet Sauvignon, you look at really basically a certain type of texture. You want a little bit more creaminess. You want a little bit Cabernet Sauvignon kind of layers, if you wish. The Cabernet Franc blend, it's a very different approach. It's more about purity and intensity. So everything has to be very pure. It's like almost like an Asian kind of mind where you look at how they landscape and how they approach food. It's much more based on purity and clean lines. So Cab Franc is a little bit of in the same kind of bracket, I would say. And it's in a way much more difficult to find, the perfect harmony when you make those kind of wines. At least for me personally.
That's probably one of the most asked questions about Cab Franc that we get asked. Is like, why don't you make 100% Cabernet Franc the way that you make, Oliver's blend is a Cab, or in recent vintages 100% Malbec, 100% Merlot. And I think you're hitting it right on the head there. It sounds like, as you kind of answered that question, is that it needs that little bit of extra kind of smoothing with that Merlot, which I always think of Merlot as almost like the fat in your steak. It kind of helps coat the palate and brings that little bit of kind of fatness to the wine, and it makes it approachable younger.
Merlot has a low acidity as well, so it's more built on fat, where the Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon, but even surprisingly, the Cabernet Franc has the highest acidity. This is the freshest of the three varietals. So you have freshness, you have energy, you have tightness by the tannic structures. That's why the little fat of the Merlot really, I feel like, bring everything together to make it very, again, pleasing. I always use that because this kind of pleasing product. It's interesting for me to, like I was always saying, it's all about, creating little babies, and you're always so proud of all of them, even if they're all obviously, as you can imagine, very different. I always say some of the kids, are good early and stay good, some good early and not stay so good, and some are bad early and become great. So wine is a little bit in the same way. I always personally love the 07 and 2010 are really some also my great favorites. I was saying the 12 is really outstanding right now. And so just to go quickly, 14 for me, I always say it's a very classic California vintage where you have for the people who like a little bit the rich, sweeter fruit profile, they can really enjoy 14 and still with some really softer tannin as well. So the wines are very approachable, very good. I always say if people don't know anything about California, they should test the 14. 15 was a surprising vintage, one of the warmest vintage, I would say, in California. We harvested grapes a month earlier than normal. And so we were expecting very flabby, wine with no life. And the wine turned out to be very pure and very classy, so I like them a lot for that. 18, I think I'm just working so hard right now to finalize all the blend of 18 before the bottling that we are going to do this summer. It's a surprisingly great vintage. We have a large volume of grapes. Usually quantity doesn't go with quality. And in 18, actually, they pair very well. The wines are fresher, more European, and more the kind of wines that I like. A little less sweet kind of fruit profile, but more like earthy, darker fruits with high acidity, so a little fresher and really good tannic structure to age very well. So 18 are looking great. Just say, goodbyes, thank you, keep drinking some Skip Stone.
And just from all of us at Skip Stone, not just those of us on the line, like, thank you.